F and I'm an addict. Welcome to GRCNA 39.5. New possibilities arise. And welcome to our workshop on
30-some years. LB. Anyway, you were down at Panama City.
Good. Let's see. Well, regarding anonymity, when joining a virtual meeting, you will need to keep your video turned off to guarantee your anonymity. If you turn your video on, you are choosing to be seen by the other participants. You can also change your name or switch to first name plus last initial to protect your identity. Oh, that's all getting scrolled for me. Let's open with a moment of silence followed by the serenity prayer. God. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There we go. Welcome to the Georgia region's first virtual convention, GRCNA 39.5. New possibilities arise. Yay! Our intention for the virtual convention is to make available to our fellowship a weekend of recovery, celebration, and fun. We hope that all addicts receive the NA message of recovery while they are participating in this event. It is our hope that the message we carry may truly let everyone know that NA is a place to recover and that no addict seeking recovery need die from addiction. Workshop participation guidelines. Please dress appropriately on camera. Please keep your microphone on mute unless you are asked to unmute by the host or co-host. If you have a question or need general assistance during the workshop, please contact the host or one of the co-hosts via direct message in chat. If there is time after our workshop speakers finish, participants may have an opportunity to share their experience, strength, and hope on the workshop topic. If you would like to share after the speakers are finished, please raise your hand. Please raise your virtual hand. Your virtual hand can be raised by going to the reactions window on your computer or by going to the More section on your phone. You will be called on to share and unmute or asked to unmute yourself, or you might be unmuted or asked to unmute yourself by one of the hosts if time permits. Please limit such shares to 3 to 4 minutes. I have asked for volunteers for our readings.
If you'd like to volunteer to read how it works, just raise your hand.
Oh, say Michael.
I'm going to ask, my name is Lenore.
Hi, Lenore.
Thank you for this wonderful convention. How it works, if you want what we have to offer and willing to make the effort to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. These are the principles that made our recovery possible. 1, we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, we humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, we continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps, we tried to carry this message to addicts and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Eddie Mack has his hand up. Would you like to read the traditions?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
I'm an addict, Philadelphia. 12 traditions of NA. We keep what we have only with vigilance, and just as freedom for the individual comes from the 12 steps, so freedom for the group springs from our traditions. As long as the ties that bind us together are stronger than those that would tear us apart, all will be well. 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends on NA unity. 2, for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. 3, the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop using. 4, each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or NA as a whole. 5, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry the message to the addict who still suffers. 6, an NA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the NA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, or prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7, every NA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Narcotics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, NA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10, Narcotics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issue. Hence, the NA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Eddie.
Our first speaker today is Catherine Reed from McDonough, Georgia. And our second, so I stopped there. Okay.
Where you at, Catherine?
I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Want me to go ahead?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Okay. My name's Catherine and I'm an addict.
Hey, Catherine.
Hi, guys.
Hi,
And thanks for the committee for asking me. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. I'm not a speaker, so I'm just going to share my experience, strength, and hope and my truth. You know, I got clean October 29th, 1992 in Southern California. And by the grace of God, I've been clean ever since, you know, and we're speaking on principles before personalities. So I just wanted to read out of the Just for Today meditation from October 25th. Just for Today is talking about principles before personalities. It says, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. 12th tradition, principles before personalities. Many of us chant these words along with the reading whenever the 12 traditions are read. The fact that these words have become a cliche of sorts doesn't make them any less important, either in service or in our lives. These words are an affirmation. We listen to our conscience and do what's right, no matter who's involved. And that principle serves as one of the cornerstones of recovery as well as our traditions. What does principles before personality really mean? It means we practice honesty, humility, compassion, tolerance, and patience with everyone, whether we like them or not. Putting principles before personality teaches us to treat everyone equally. The 12 steps ask us to apply principles in all our affairs. The 12th tradition, the 12th step asks us to apply principles in all our affairs. The 12th tradition suggests we apply them to our relationships with everyone. Practicing principles doesn't stop with our friends or when we leave a meeting. It's for every day, for everyone in all areas of our lives. Just for today, I will listen to my conscience and do what's right. My focus will be on principles, not on people's personalities. I'm Catherine, I'm an addict. You know, when Mike asked me to speak and told me what I was on, it was like, holy moly, you know. So the first thing I did, of course, is I went to Google and said principles for personalities. And the first thing that came up was this meditation, you know, in my Google search. And so I printed it, and, you know, and for me, you know, I've talked to my sponsor, and once a week on Mondays, we have a sponsee meeting with all of our sponsorship family, you know, and we were, you know, and we talk a lot about principles before personalities, you know, and, you know, practicing honesty, humility, compassion, tolerance, and patience with everyone. Woo! You know, patience with everyone. You know, when I got here, it was like, I couldn't stand any of you. You know, it was like, I wanted what you had, but don't come close, you know, stay back, you know, stay away, you know, but you guys would come at me like, you know, welcoming me and wanting to hug me. And it was like, who are these people, you know? But when I walked into that room in that first meeting, I knew I was at home, but yet it was because I was agoraphobic. I lived in my 12 by 12 closet for a long time. You know, I had 2 children, 6 and 9 when I got here. And the only time I really came out of that closet was when it was time to go to school, to feed them, to dress them, to get them to school, you know. And I went to the grocery store like at midnight, you know, at night, you know, in the early AM hours. And because I didn't want to have to deal with people because I wasn't good at that, you know. And when I got here to Narcotics Anonymous, you guys told me, you know, you'd love me till I could learn to love myself, you know. And I didn't know how to love myself. You know, I knew how to love everybody around me, but to love Catherine for who Catherine was or is, it never, I was never taught that growing up, you know. And so it was suggested I write on my mirror every day in every way, Catherine's getting better and better. I love Catherine today, you know. And I can remember my 6-year-old coming in and asking me, you know, Mommy, don't you love yourself? And I said, you know, I'm learning how. And I told her, no, I don't, you know, I don't know how to love Catherine. You know, I love you. And she goes, Mommy, I love you. And it was, you know, of course, it just brought tears to my eyes because I was teaching my kids how to love themselves too. Because, you know, she says, oh, I love me and I love you, you know. And it's like, wow, you know. But you guys would whisper, you know, then you give me those hugs and whisper in my ear, you know, keep coming back, Catherine, you know, the program works, you know, if it worked for us, it will work for you. And so, you know, I grabbed onto that because I believe, you know. And somebody else told me, believe because we believe, you know, believe it can happen to you because it's happened to us. And I have, you know, and it has happened for me. You know, you know, not every day is a great and wonderful day. I mean, almost every morning I wake up, I have to tell myself, okay, Catherine, get out of bed. You know, we got to get out of bed. We got to do what's in front of us. Put your feet on the floor. We were reading the in my group the other day, you know, about the Living Clean book. And one thing it said in there, it says, when you get up, put your feet on the floor. You know, get out of bed and put your feet on the floor. I can't remember which part it was in, but it was like, oh my gosh, you know, that's what I have to do every morning. I have to get up, put my feet on the floor and get that foundation of knowing where I'm at and what I need to do today, you know, and talking to my God and asking God to just guide me along my way, you know, because when I got here, I didn't like all you guys, you know, and I know y'all didn't like me because, you know, I'd hear people back, you know, in the background, you know, people when I'd share, because I was sick when I got here, you know, and I shared my truth and it was sick, you know. It was, you know, I was one of those that was sicker than most, you know, and I'm okay with that today. You know, God saw fit for me to come into the rooms, and I got clean in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. You know, I'd never been to a rehab. I've never been, you know, when I first got here, I can say I've never been to an outpatient program or anything. But like, So I did what was suggested, you know, when I got clean, there were only like 3 NA meetings in my area at all. And so I went to that other fellowship too. And that's what I had to do for me, you know. And then I got this little Thomas guide, they call him. You know, today we have our phones with navigation, but back then we didn't have phones, you know, we didn't even have beepers, you know. It was like, you know, I had a Thomas guide, and I had a regional directory, and I had meetings in there, and I would go through those meetings, and I'd see where they started. You know, there'd be 7 o'clock, you know, maybe 7:15, maybe, you know. I used to be able, I was a runner, so I was a traveler, so I was able to go to 4 or 5 meetings in an hour and a half, because I was so afraid of all you guys, and I knew none of you liked me because I didn't like myself. So how could you like me? And I knew you all hung out together, but not with me. You know, that was my thinking. You know, I had that sick thinking. And so somebody grabbed me one day, probably it's probably 2 or 3 years into the program, and said, "Catherine, you need to stop. You need to stand still and stop." You know, and that was the hardest thing for me to do. You know, I used to go to these one meetings at this Alano Club, and they were, you know, both fellowships, because like I said, there were just a few NA meetings in my area at that time, and nobody would sit by me because I literally shook for 11 months. My whole body vibrated, you know, for 11 months. And at 11 months, I pray to God every day, please stop, please stop. And at 11 months, for some reason, I stopped vibrating, you know. But if I took that sip of coffee, or I took that sip, you know, so I quit drinking coffee, and then I started drinking Coke and Mountain Dew. That was a big mistake too. So I quit doing all kinds of caffeine because I just wanted to be okay, you know. And I'd share in the meetings, and I'd share the mess, you know. And one day I was sharing in this meeting, and one lady that I kind of sort of knew, she shared after me, and she goes, "Oh my God, Catherine, you shared the message and not the mess," you know. And it was like, holy moly, you know, that was about 9 months into the program, you know. I was finally getting some serenity, you know. And for me, you know, this principles before personalities, you know, I was always taught that, you know, you took care of everybody around you and everything else would be taken care of. But I was never taught how to take care of Catherine. So, you know, and that's really emotional for me today too, because you guys taught me how to love me and like the person I am today, you know. And I can truly tell you, I love the lady I have become. You know, I got to retire a year, well, in June, it will be a year in June, but I moved to McDonough, Georgia, a year ago in March. You know, I was on disability, and I stayed on disability. My boss let me stay on disability and paid my insurance because of the COVID thing until June. So I retired the beginning of June, and so I'm now retired, and I still participate in my recovery. I don't know very many people in my area here, and I'm so grateful for Zoom. So that's one reason I'm grateful for the pandemic, because I got to still have my people in California, where I'm from, my sponsee family, and the people I got clean with are still in my life, like every week, you know. And if it wasn't, I'd be, you know, having to be here, which is fine. But, you know, there's only 2 meetings in my town, and they are meeting. I do know that they have, you know, live meetings, but I don't go to them because we have a new grandbaby in the house, and both my son and daughter-in-law are high risk. So, you know, I want to protect my family, you know, and I'm doing what has been suggested, you know. And God's been so good to me, you know. And you know, and I just want to share this one story that, you know, I used to have to get speakers for this speaker meeting, Monday night speaker meeting. It's my home group, and it was in Norco, California. it was always, we always had a big group of people. You know, there was always like 100 or more people at this meeting. And I wasn't there. And so the secretary got, for some reason, I couldn't get the speaker. So the secretary got the speaker, and the speaker started speaking. And by the time the end of the meeting, by the time she was done speaking, I think there was me and the secretary left in the room. She had run everybody out of the rooms with the things she was saying and and the way she was sharing, you know. And I remember I can remember my sponsor telling me I needed to stay in the whole meeting. You know, I just wanted to run out too. You know, it was the most horrible thing I ever. I'm going, oh my gosh, you know, I wanted to stop her. It was just like, but you know, that personality thing. I mean, it's the way she was sharing was just horrible. She, you know, but it was her honesty. You know, that was her recovery and her share. But it was just, I mean, every other word was you know, a cuss word, and then the things she was saying was just like, you know, triple X, you know, and it was just like, you know, and I mean, she ran. It was just, I don't know what else to tell you, but that, yeah, you got the message. But anyways, so I stayed, you know, because that was my job, you know, that I was committed to that meeting. That was my home group. And, you know, but, you know, God saw fit, you know, and then I talked to my sponsor later and she said, yeah, Catherine, you did the right thing. You know, we all have our stories and we all share them a certain way. And, you know, and some, you know, and so I just stayed. But, you know, that's one thing I learned, you know, about personalities is everybody has a different personality, and I'm not going to like everybody in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, you know, and I've been around the rooms long enough to know that people share in Narcotics Anonymous a really good story, and then you go out and you know, see them in real life, you know, in reality outside of the rooms, and they're not even living or practicing what they preach inside of the rooms on the outside. You know, I had to learn how to keep my mouth closed about that too, because I wanted to just, you know, there was a couple of people I just wanted to just open my mouth during the meeting and go, that's a bunch of blah, blah, blah. You know, you're not, you know, get honest, you know, do an honest program, you know. But for me, I know when I share and when I speak to you, it's my truth. And this is my truth. I love Narcotics Anonymous. And if it wasn't for the people who reached out to me, and I allowed myself to reach out to them, because that was the problem. I was agoraphobic. I didn't know, I was in so much fear of letting people know who Catherine was or is, and letting them help me, you know. And through working the steps and having a sponsor and being a service, you know, I've been able to stay clean since the time I came into Narcotics Anonymous, you know. And I'm a firm believer that, you know, we don't have to get loaded no matter what. I'm a member of that no matter what club. Some people like it, some people don't. But you know what? I truly believe that no matter what, as long as I do and work the program to the best of my ability, I'm not going to get loaded. And I have the higher power of my understanding, and I'm surrendered to that higher power. And I've done that today, you know. I'm just so grateful that everybody's here today. I don't know how long I spoke, probably not long enough, but you know, I could keep going on, but I don't want to lie either. So, you know, thanks for letting me share.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Catherine. Fantastic.
Love you, Catherine. Thanks for your story.
Thank you, Catherine.
While we give Carrie a chance to get the screen back up.
Yeah.
Great share.
Great share. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing.
Do you want me just to introduce Jimmy?
Yeah, you can go ahead and do that. Here we go.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Catherine. That was fantastic. And so our next speaker, good friend of mine, good friend of everybody's, Jimmy N. Sorry. Sorry.
That's fine. My name is Jimmy. I'm an addict.
Sorry,
You
Jimmy.
guys hear me okay?
Hey, Jimmy.
Good.
Cool.
Hey, Jimmy.
Hey, thank you, Catherine, for sharing, and welcome to Georgia. Appreciate that. We get a lot of transplants here. We love having people from other places. So something that she said sort of struck me, and just the whole concept of this while I was watching it. There's like 65 people on this. I've done tradition type workshops before, and you usually have 5 or 6 people. 3 of them are friends of yours, and others just came to kind of share on the topic.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have this many people in this kind of a workshop, number one, and from all over the country. I got clean August 28th, 1984. So I've seen a lot of technology changes, and it occurred to me about 25 years ago, I was up at working in New Jersey, and I was looking for a meeting. And so I had to call the helpline, and then you had to wait. There was no cell phone. I had to wait in my phone in the hotel to get a phone call back from someone. And they gave me an address, to a meeting. And then I had to go buy a map at a store. And if you think driving with a cell phone is dangerous, try driving in a state you don't know with a 3x3 foot map unfolded in the car, trying to navigate my way around New Jersey. So now we can get into a meeting in any country. I've been attending some meetings in Iran, in England, and recently we got to get translated, and just those things would have never happened, without the technology changes. And I think we've adopted pretty well to this environment. So also, thank everyone in the committee. It's a lot of work doing this. I know you guys had to adjust very quickly and got all this put together. Great job on the mugs, Mike. I got my coffee mug. The logo is really cool. So good job on that. Getting clean as early as I did, I've seen a lot of changes, and I'm going to go through basically, if you want to follow along, it works how and why. I've got some notes in here, just quote a couple of things and then share my experience on it just to keep my thoughts organized a little bit. But when I got clean, there was NA was relatively new, and we were trying to break away from other fellowships, and so the traditions weren't really the spiritual principles I understand them as today. They were kind of weapons, right? And if you said the word sober in a meeting, people would yell out at you. And it's like if you violated a tradition, they were like rules and citations written. And I don't know, I just looked at them as weapons more so than anything. And but over time, after I worked steps and then worked the traditions, I began to understand that there are spiritual principles behind those as well, and they're really very important. And I'm kind of a history buff, and if you look prior to 1970, there really weren't real NA meetings anywhere. California had about 30 of them, but all the attempts failed miserably. And when you looked at those meetings that attempted, they tend to be created by strong personalities, and they did not follow any type of steps or traditions, and they ended up failing. And the ones that did get created that followed steps and traditions, they survived. So they are really, really important to us and to our fellowship. And this one in particular, it says the tradition describes a fellowship that takes its collective guidance from spiritual principles rather than individual personalities. Tradition 12 was all the traditions rolled up into one, summarizing and reinforcing the message of the previous 11. So I'm going to kind of go through and talk about that, because it yearly we're going to talk about anonymity and the different meanings of that and my experience with that, and principles before personalities as well as we go through there. So anonymity, there's a couple of definitions of that. One is that we're all equal. I forget the definition, it's escaping me, but we're all equal as individuals within the fellowship. There's no hierarchy, there's no president. I'm not more important than somebody that just came in. We're all the same. That's one of it. The other is anonymity is just protecting the names and personal information of other people, when I'm out in public or in a group and so forth. So I kind of get into that a little more, as we go through this. So, but anonymity, it is really essential preserving the stability of our fellowship. Recovery is a delicate thing. It grows best in a stable, supportive environment. Each of us in each of our groups plays a part in maintaining the stability of that. I think creating a welcoming environment. I mean, the reason that I came in and stayed is that, I felt like I was different. I grew up in an upper middle class home. I went to a private school. My parents were never divorced. I didn't really live on the streets. So my story was a little different as some people when they came in. But when you started talking about recovery, the things I did, we had kind of a common bond about that. Even in treatment, there was a guy there that was a retired court judge. There was a guy there that owned some a big business, car dealership, it's people off the street. And on the surface, none of us had anything in common. Like, I don't think I could have a conversation with these people. But, you know, the anonymity that we're all the same recovering addicts, we had a common problem. And instead of talking about our differences, we talked about what is the same, you know, and that's the really important part about that. And that we have to create this supportive environment, you know, in our meetings, and we're all kind of responsible, and the traditions really help us do that. Here's some examples. Anonymity is a primary principle underlying our tradition of membership. While we all have our personal differences, NA's only membership requirement is what we have in common, a desire to stop using. I did this a couple of months ago, and somebody brought up from another state that they were making a suggestion to the World Conference that we change the tradition to an honest desire. You know, and my question was, who is going to define what an honest desire is? My favorite quote out of the traditions is, the traditions are there to protect ourselves from ourselves. Because if we started making rules, I think if you ask 20 people the definition of an honest desire, you would get 20 different answers. I mean, there's some people that don't like drug court people. They don't like treatment center people, but yet treatment center person probably wouldn't have got clean without it. And I know 5 or 6 people that swear they wouldn't be clean if it wasn't for drug court. So I don't have the right to judge how you got here. It might have been your family pushing you, spouse, police, judges, but you come and hopefully the message catches on. And I don't have the right to judge your desire, and we don't have a right to make rules who gets to be here, who doesn't get to be here. Because if we get involved in that, it'd be so complicated that it probably none of us would qualify by the time we got done making all the rules. Another one is, a principal core of anonymity lies at the core of our fellowship's understanding of group conscience. The idea is of each individual group member have their importance, but the group takes its guidance from the collective conscience of all its members before the group makes a decision. You know, I'm kind of a self-centered person when I got here, for sure, and I certainly can participate in that character defect even today, but I really like this, and the fact that we make decisions using consensus-based decision-making. You know, our area was switching over to it. I'm a part of the World Service Conference is switching to it. Our group does it that way. And what I like about that is it gets everybody involved. Anybody that's been in service knows that whether it's your home group or area or region, there's tends to be some strong personalities involved. And then Robert's Rules of Order, when you had two pros, 2 cons, it was almost always the same people arguing. So the voices of other people never really got heard. You know, and NA is about everybody being able to share and being able to participate. You know, when I was facilitating, Carrie and I were doing it North Atlanta, and they still do that today, is when they have a subject, I made sure everybody spoke about it, right? Share your experience, your opinion on it. The more information that we throw on the table, the better off we are. And even though I may feel strongly about something, I'm open-minded enough that my mind has been changed when somebody else had an experience I had not thought of. You know, and that's part of that is remaining open-minded. And that's also part of being inclusive. If we do everything my way, who wants to participate in service if this one person's making decisions about everything? So I really, you know, and I've learned to do that, you know, at my job as well. I get mad at my job, things aren't happening. I got to remember, you know, our primary purpose, right, is making money. What can I do to help my company make money today? So I've taken a lot of these concepts and incorporated them into, you know, my personal life, work life as well. Let's see. Just as the principle of anonymity guides the evolution of group collective conscience, it also applies to group autonomy. Each NA group is, of course, entirely free to fulfill its primary purpose as it sees fit. I've had the privilege of traveling. I've been to probably 60, 70% of the states in the United States and several other countries, and been to meetings. And just so if you don't travel much, some people don't do it there like they do it here. There's some interesting meeting formats around the world. As an example, if you go to Australia, they don't hug there. You know, the first time I went to a meeting, I tried to hug a guy. He was lighting a cigarette and he almost lit his hair on fire. You know, and they kindly explained to me that they just don't do that there. And I'm like, well, why? You know, but they have their reasons. You know, and there's groups of people in a meeting and they do it a certain way. And there's 50, 60 people. Who am I to judge how they do that? You know, they're reading the literature, they're talking recovery. The format's a little bit different. But, that's the way they do it. That's their personality. And people go to different meetings that kind of fit their personality. We're not all exactly the same. And that part I really like as well, that we get to choose. We don't have to make everything, exactly the same. The principle of anonymity shapes our primary purpose. This is a big one. Our fellowship is guided by its collective purpose to carry the message to the still suffering addict. And I like about this concept is, when you get into service meetings, and sometimes it's funny, I'll see, I've been in arguments with people and other people arguing over certain things they disagree on, but then we'll go to a meeting and a newcomer walks in and I'll see all three of us go over there and, give them a number, talk to them, just all of a sudden, all that stuff is in the background that we're here, we're passionate about recovery, but we're here to carry the message. And that becomes really the most important thing, is carrying the message to somebody. And even though they might be a little different than us, our diversity is important because, my experience somebody may hear my experience, but John's experience, somebody else may prefer to hear what he has and can relate to him more. Or depending where you go from. Our diversity is our strength, because we're going to get all types that come in the meeting and they all need to hear the message. And not all of us are really come from the same area, same backgrounds, but yet our common message is the message of recovery and what we can do about it. And that brings us all together regardless of what outside issues kind of come into play. And I'm going to kind of talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Another one is anonymity guides our fellowship interactions in society. However, we do not trade that name for the endorsement of organizations that might possibly help us further our primary purpose. So it might be a good time to talk about this. So, anytime we get involved in outside issues and not having, people sponsor us, this meeting's sponsored by Prozac or something like that, we keep all the outside stuff out and we talk about just ourselves in the meetings. We're not, always make a point that we're meeting at a church, but we're really not affiliated with the church or the treatment center or whatever that might be. But it's really important to keep those things outside the fellowship. And I've used this example a lot now, and I'm not trying to share my opinion on COVID, but it's a good example of bringing an outside issue into the fellowship. And what I mean by that is normally we wouldn't discuss a disease, right? That wouldn't be something that would be part of meetings or part of service and so forth. But because of the pandemic and meetings shutting down and places not allowing to meet and all the rules and so forth and safety concerns, we have to deal with it. We're forced to deal with it. But because it's an outside issue, being in the service meetings that I'm in quite a bit, and I get to talk to regions all over the world and what I do, and there is similar response, is that people's opinion on COVID is very, very different. And that has created a conflict and it's kind of split the fellowship in some cases. There's some people that love Zoom. It's a great tool. I think it will be great, particularly for service going down the road. But there's a group of people that don't like the Zoom. They don't get a lot out. A lot of newcomers aren't really utilizing it. They like to see face-to-face meetings and so forth. And some people believe in that. Some people don't believe in meeting face-to-face, and it's pushed people away out of the fellowship. We're missing, just from my little bit of legwork on this, the fellowship's probably missing about 30% of the members that were here last year at this time, due to either not going to meetings, not adopting to Zoom, or some of the policies within that have kind of pushed them away. Even some of my personal friends choose not to come to NA because they feel like there's a lot of stuff going on and they don't want to be a part of the arguments and so forth of how to deal with COVID and so forth. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't deal with it. I'm not trying to make an opinion of the best way to deal with that. Point being is that an outside issue brought in, it divides us. And it's divided the fellowship, and not just here, but other regions around the world are experiencing something very similar. Same thing with politics in this past year. People kind of brought that out on Facebook and other places and been attacks. I've been the recipient of a little bit of that. And, and other people, it pushes them away. And social media is a good thing, but this particular year it seemed to be amplified. And this is my one opinion, and that is the first thought in an addict's head should never be out on social media. It should be filtered through friendship and a sponsorship, and the second or third version should be put out there. But a lot of us put stuff out there without really thinking. It's that thought inside the head that probably should be filtered through a sponsor. But once again, that's been kind of brought into the fellowship, whether we wanted to or not, and it's split the fellowship apart in some ways. And that's part of the division of certain people that don't talk to each other and things of that nature. And that's kind of scary to me, because people's mental health is all-time high level of stress. Addiction is way up, and the message that we have now is more important than it's ever been. And people die from COVID, but I've done a lot of people died from overdoses and suicides too. And we need to keep the fellowship, our primary purpose of carrying the message needs to make sure it's there. It needs to not be COVID and politics, that we remember that. And there's a lot of people suffering out there, and how can we help them? And putting that being more important than my personal feelings about other things. Anyway. Next part, anonymity is one of the guiding principles behind the way our groups practice the seventh tradition. We believe in the value of selfless generosity for its own sake. The thing about that, we take money and so forth anonymously. We're not like nonprofits who track stuff rigorously. I went to a private school, and these people have tracked me for 35 years trying to get me to give them money. I mean, I get something from them on a weekly basis, and we don't really do that. But it's the seventh tradition is not so much about money too, but it's also about the giving of time and my resources to that. I do service kind of for a different reason today. I mean, it is partially about giving back to the fellowship, but I've also realized that I need to do the service sometimes as much or more than the service needs to be done. Because it gets me involved. I mean, I'm thinking of a lot of the relationships I have simply because of service that I've created some really good relationships. And it's necessary for me to stay clean. And I think people that get time, some of my friends, they get away from service or get away from meetings, and they're not really committing to anything, and then they slide out the door, and that's really not necessarily a good thing. So part of that giving back is necessary for me, just not so much money, but the time, carrying a key, answering a phone, doing step work with people, all those kind of things are part of giving back. And that's really as important as anything else. Let's see. This sample principle, the same principle of selfless anonymity is the spiritual foundation of 8th tradition, Narcotics Anonymous. We have no professional 12-steppers. A spiritual experience cannot be bought or sold. It can only be given away. That's, part of that is just simply giving myself and being available time to help somebody, whether it be talking to them at their first meeting, returning a phone call, calling and checking up on people. I've kind of started doing more of that just because of the COVID times, knowing that people are struggling, reaching out to people more and more. The one thing about getting off of Facebook is it forced me to make phone calls and get in front of people. So as opposed to looking you up on Facebook, I'm talking to you on the phone, and that's done me a lot of good because it's forced me to reach out a little bit more than I was, because it's easy. I don't know, the Zoom thing, one bad thing, it can make you lazy, and I found myself being lazy. I'm watching Zoom, but I'm doing emails, I'm doing other stuff, and I'm not as engaged and so forth. So I have to force myself to participate. And when I talk to somebody on the phone, I'm a bit more engaged. So I've been trying to practice that a little bit more this year than I have in the past. The next one is Narcotics Anonymous. We apply the principle of anonymity in the way we structure our service organization. No authoritarian hierarchy. It creates boards and committees solely to serve us and not to govern. And I really like this one a lot. And I try to remember that whatever service efforts I'm doing, our meetings are really the most important thing that we have, are meetings, because meetings is where the magic happens. And our H&I, our public relations efforts, everything that we do is to either get people in a meeting or get a meeting to the people, because that's where the magic happens. and that, everything I do is in service of meetings. And most people I work with are really the same way as well. But that's, once again, we're all really the same. Where no one is more important than anybody else, other than moving that primary purpose forward. And any service I do is simply to try and get somebody to a meeting, or to another recovering addict. And a meeting is the best place to do that. All right. I already kind of talked about this, but we have no opinions on anything outside of our Narcotics Anonymous. And when we do, just recently with politics and with COVID, we see what happens. It's kind of interesting to hear. I mean, I know people I know have different opinions, but in service, it was really dramatic of what people thought about what should be done about COVID. And those opinions could not be agreed upon, and it really split people apart. And it's just a good example of why we try to keep these things, outside issues as much as we can outside ourselves, because it will end up doing us, if you bring anything outside of recovery in, you'll have 50 people feel this way, 50 people feel that way, whether it's college football or, the 3-point rule or whatever. It will divide people. And we just can't afford to do that, because we got to stay focused on our primary purpose of carrying the message. Let's see here. Getting back into the last piece of it is really 12 tradition, talking about, let's see here. Yeah, NME applies only to our public pronouncements, but the principle underlying the whole fellowship's public relations policy. In our public contacts, we base the credibility of the program on NA's effectiveness, not on any personal reputation of any individual member. What's said in this meeting stays in this meeting. Also reminds us that the message is not the messenger, it's what's most important about sharing that occurs in our meetings. The 12th tradition, anonymity, also means that if the final analysis, our personal differences make no difference in NA. In recovery, we are all equal. And that has to be, we have to be careful with that. And I tell people this, that if you see me out in public, I'm generally wearing a coat and tie at my job. So if I'm at a Starbucks or whatever, I'm probably not into talking recovery. I'm probably in the middle of talking business, and I probably wouldn't appreciate somebody asking me if I'm going to a meeting tonight or whatever. And there are people who have businesses, their professions, that if their anonymity is broken, it could ruin their jobs. And that I have to be careful of how I carry myself. Particularly if I'm going to wear, NA shirts and things in public. One of our members, she had passed away, but she told me a story that she was delayed 2 years of getting in recovery because she waited at a table. This was out west, I think in Washington. And as an NA meeting came in, and they were such jerks to her that she wouldn't come to a meeting because of their behavior at the restaurant. So we got to remember that you're a role model, whether you want to be or not. You just get to choose whether it's a good one or a bad one. That's your only two choices. And so if I'm going to wear stuff like this, I don't wear a lot out in public. I wear it around my house because I'm not too worried about my anonymity at my house. But at my job, sometimes I am. I don't necessarily want that to be public knowledge. I did have a friend of mine that looked up a meeting at her work. In her job, she was in charge of money somewhat, and the IT got a hold of it. She got fired over looking up a meeting because they thought she had a drug problem. She's in charge of money, and they let her go because of that. So, when I'm out, I want to be careful about breaking other people's anonymity when we're eating at a restaurant. I'm wearing the jewelry and the shirt and all that stuff, and how I behave in public becomes very important because, one bad behavior can affect a lot of people who witness that, who share that story with somebody else. So I just have to be a little wary about that. And, we've gotten a lot better. I mean, when I first started going, good Lord, we about got kicked out of several hotels and ashtrays stolen and damage and all this stuff. And you don't really hear about that as often like you used to. We've grown up a lot in NA compared to the old days. But I still have to be wary about that. A friend of mine, she shares a lot about not putting an NA sticker on her car because she likes to drive like a madman. She goes, I don't want anybody thinking NA is all about, Mario or Maria Andretti in her particular case. And and the same thing for me. I'm careful about, wearing this, but I'm also careful about my behavior when I'm out in public, because I never know how that's going to reflect on somebody and what they're going to think about it. So let's see, I'm trying to think a couple other messages here I wanted to bring into this. All right, so that's about it. I want to read this last paragraph, which kind of sums this up, principles before personalities, and realizing that the recovering addict, and putting, the fellowship ahead of myself, putting a recovering addict ahead of myself, nothing but good comes from that. And this last paragraph kind of sums that up, and I'll kind of end here and then let you guys do some sharing. It says, our common welfare depends upon our unity. The only hope we have of maintaining that unity amidst the tremendous diversity we find in Narcotics Anonymous is by the application of certain common principles, those found in the 12 traditions. So long as we place the practice of those common principles before the exercise of our individual personalities, all will be well. So anyway, thanks for letting me share, and I'll turn it back over to you guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Fantastic, Jimmy.
Thanks, Jimmy. Great job, man.
Thank you, man. Yeah.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Good job, Jimmy.
Thank you, Jimmy. Love you, brother.
Hey, Carrie will pull that
Thank you. Thank you for your share, Jim.
back up. And we'll turn it back over
Thank you, Jimmy.
to Mr. John.
Would any participants care to share their own experience, strength, and hope on our workshop topic? Okay.
Got Eddie Mack.
Do I call them out?
Yeah, I called him Eddie Mack. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Oh, hi, everybody. My name's Eddie. I'm an addict.
Hey, Eddie.
And, it's great to be a part of this convention. Haven't been to a convention in quite some time with this whole thing going on. And thank you for the putting it together, and for the speakers. You guys covered, there's really not much left to be covered. That's pretty thorough between both of you guys. And, the one thing, I think about, I think about a lot of things when I think about principles before personalities. And, I think about when I got here, I wasn't really worried about practicing spiritual principles, or I just wanted to stop using. And as a result of getting a sponsor and starting on this journey of, not just dealing with my drug of choice, or my most obvious symptom was to get involved in the process of getting better. And, so the steps obviously were the first thing where I started to encounter spiritual principles. And, it explains a lot, like looking back at why I felt the way I felt when I walked into my first meeting, and what made me want to make that second meeting. It was because of addicts practicing this program, which created, an atmosphere of recovery. That atmosphere of recovery doesn't happen just out of the air. That atmosphere of recovery, I believe, happens by individuals, by the home group. It all starts at the home group. The highest part of service. At the home group, and how that home group creates that atmosphere. And if you have a bunch of addicts, that are going against each other or fighting each other, that shows up when you walk into a meeting, and you feel that. You can go into meetings and feel that tension between the home group members. And so that's where that, like, principles and personalities really comes into play, because I'm involved in a home group that we probably have 6 or 7 people with over 30 years clean. And you would think, like, out of the gate, hey, this is beautiful, and it is. It shows a great message of hope. But when those 6 or 7 people know what's best, and we shut down the new guy that has an opinion, that becomes a problem. Because the one thing that I love about Narcotics Anonymous is the way I felt when I came in, and the things I've learned is that, when I walk through the door, it's an equal playing field. There is nobody over here, just like you shared. It's an equal playing field, and it's an equal opportunity for everyone to get a day clean and for everyone to recover from this disease of addiction. And, so when we have those group conscience of business meetings, they always don't go smooth. And what we started to see in our home group as a result of, people knowing what's best is some of the newcomers started to leave, and then here, the same 7 people with over 30 years clean are sticking tight. And, when the newcomer starts leaving, or the person, with a little bit of time starts to leave because they can't deal with the personalities, it's a problem and it has to be addressed. And we just kind of addressed something in our home group, and of course, it didn't go over real well, but the bottom line is the primary purpose. That's the one thing. All right, I acknowledge that. I'll be done. And the one thing that we have to understand is that what we're here for, it all comes down to the most important person, the addict who's still suffering. And that can be one of those people with over 30 years, but we're there to continue the primary purpose, and that's to carry the message to the addict who still suffers. And that's all I have to share. Thank you for letting me share.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thanks,
Thank you, Eddie.
Got Patty and Michael, and we've got about 4 minutes. So if you'll share the time, Patty.
My name's Patty. I'm an addict.
Hey, Patty.
And I just wanted to address something that Jimmy said about outside issues. I agree that politics are outside issues. However, I disagree on the COVID thing because I live in Georgia, but my home group is in California. It's a Zoom group, and we have lots of newcomers that are getting clean on Zoom. But there are areas of California where they've continued to have, all through the pandemic, continued to have in-person meetings and had massive amounts of infections in those meetings. And it cast a negative light on NA. The perception by people outside of NA was very negative towards those meetings. And so we have to be careful what we label outside issues, and also look at things that are going to cast a negative light on us as a fellowship. And while each group is autonomous, except in matters affecting NA, other groups are NA as a whole. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks.
Patty.
All right, Michael.
Thank you. My name is Michael. I'm an addict, and
Hey, Michael.
Here in Florida, where I'm at, I got clean in Atlanta in 1990, but we really have an issue down here with the clarity statement, and it's really a problem in my opinion. It really drives out a lot of newcomers when they come in. They walk in the door from treatment centers and they say, "I'm an addict, I'm an alcoholic," and everybody's like, "Hey, you can't say that," and yell it out in the meeting. It's really a problem. I don't like it at all. I'm trying to get my home group to change that right now, but I want to reiterate what the lady just said, Patty. This is from It Works How and Why, the 10th tradition, page 198, starting at the bottom of the page and the second sentence in the last paragraph. Does the 10th tradition tell us that as individual addicts, we must not talk in NA meetings about the challenges we face? No, it does not. While a particular problem may be an outside issue, its effect on our recovery is not. Everything affecting a recovering addict's life is material for sharing. If a problem we are having impacts our ability to stay clean and grow spiritually, it is not an outside issue. So, although I agree that NA as a whole cannot have an opinion on anything, but I can have opinions on things and I can share about it in meetings. Like, for example, I can walk into the room and I can say, "Man, I'm really having a tough time with this COVID stuff, man. I'm stuck in my room. I can't get out." I have an underlying condition. My neurologist told me if I catch this thing, I have a 0% chance of survival. He's recently changed that though, so thank God I can go back to in-person meetings. It affects me personally, and so you know, my sponsees would say, I'm not going to meetings. No way, man. I'm not going to any meetings, you know. I mean, Zoom meetings suck, you know. And I think that comes, well, for me, it's open-mindedness, you know, and principles before personalities. Recently, I've discovered that each person in this thing has a path. And how arrogant is of me to say that that person doesn't have recovery because they're doing something that I don't like. So I'm accepting things a lot more these days, you know, and understanding that those people that I think might have a problem with their recovery, they got time clean, they're doing something right. I don't know what it is, but they're doing something right. Thanks for letting me share. I'm literally looking forward to this convention. I registered, I got a tumbler, I got a shirt. This is awesome, man. Thanks a lot, guys. I went to the first MACTA ever, by the way. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Michael.
For sure, Michael. Glad you.
All right, Gary, we can turn it back over to John now.
John, before you finish up the serenity prayer, I'm gonna put the 7 tradition information up right quick.
Okay, great.
So you can read
this.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, if you would.
7th tradition in support for GRCNA. Donate via PayPal using registration at grcna.org. Donate via Venmo using @Georgia Regional CONV-40. If asked for the last 4 digits of the associate phone, use 0387. Donate via the website by registering or making a newcomer donation at https://grcna.com/shop/. Thank you. Okay, I just want to thank Jimmy and Catherine for their shares, and grateful to be here at GRCNA 39.5. If we could take a moment of silence, and then we'll follow it out with the serenity prayer. God, grant us the serenity
to accept the things we cannot change,
the
courage to
courage
change things we can,
and
The wisdom
the
to
wisdom
to know the difference.
Keep coming back.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Good job, y'all. Thank you.
Great job.
Really
Great
good
job.
job.
Everybody.
Thanks, Catherine.
Good job.
Patty, good to see you.
Thank you
Hey,
very much.
Noe.
And Jay, thanks for calling me. We'll see you guys soon.
We have an afternoon speaker meeting starting at 1:30 and break time until then, I do believe.
I'm going to eat.
Time for
You guys-
lunch, Mike.
Is Catherine B still on?
Hey, Naomi, good to see you.
Hey, Carrie.
Yeah.
Hey, Naomi.
Love
Hey,
y'all.
Naomi.
See
Hi,
y'all soon.
Naomi.
Yeah, Catherine's still here.
Hey,
Where did
Naomi.
you get clean, Catherine?
I got clean in Southern California,
Where?
in Corona,
Ah, I
Riverside.
got clean the first time in Ventura.
Ah, okay, yeah, cool. Yeah.
Good to see you, John.
That's where I
Good to
go
see
to
you,
my,
Brian.
Hey, Mike R.
that's
Good
where my home group is.
Oh, okay, yeah,
See you.
yeah. My
It's a
home group.
great meeting.
Is
It's
it?
a 7 a.m. for them,
Uh-huh.
but it's, 10 o'clock for us.
Oh, yeah, yeah, great.
Yeah, that California, Marin County is a great meeting.
Yep.
All right.
Okay,
Hey, I have a quick question on the next meeting. Is it going to be on the same, on this same number on Zoom, or does each meeting have its own?
No, each meeting has its own. You'll have to log out and come back into the website again.
Yeah, and just going to the
Okay,
convention
great.
hall. Yeah.
I
Gotcha.
think you
All right.
can just,
Thank you so much.
if you're on the website, you can come out of the, go back to the convention hall and
Yeah.
click on the next one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do that.
Gotcha.
You can do that too.
Love you guys. Thanks.
Love
All right,
you.
Mike.
Thank you,
All
Mike.
right.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks. Have a good day, everybody. Great meeting.
I see you,
Eddie,
George.
good to see you, man. Thanks for your share.
Good to see you, Carrie.
Good to see you too, Patty.
I missed seeing you these last few.
Well, I've
Thursdays.
been coming. We've had like 6 meetings at Thursday from 6:30 to 8 to prepare for this. So I'll be back next week. I miss
that's
you
good.
all too. Yeah.
That's
Thank
good.
you,
Thanks,
John.
Carrie.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, I
Great,
did
Jimmy.
see
Great,
you at the
Kim.
birthday
Seeing both of
meeting.
you all.
Love you.
Love you too, Patty.
You, Patty. All right, everyone, I'm gonna shut down the room and.
Thank you,
All right.
Mike.
I'll see you, Mike. Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
Mike.
Bye,
See ya.
Mike.
See
I
you,
love
man.
you. Bye, Kim. Bye, Tori.
Bye, Naomi.
See y'all
Bye, bye,
soon.
Naomi.
Hey, John, great to see
Hey,
you.
good to see
Hey,
you.
Naomi.
Hey,
Hi,
Naomi.
Kim.
Oh, hey, Catherine. Hey,
It's
Mike.
Kathy.
I
All right,
know,
love you
I knew
guys.
exactly who it was.
You said
Feel
Kathy.
better, sweetie.
Oh,
Love
yeah.
y'all.
Love you.
Bye. Love you too, Naomi.
Love you, Kim.
Love you too.
Love you
Thanks,
too,
Jay.
Jay.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Bye, everybody.
Hi, y'all.